Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to this channel. Give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. A lot of content on there.
Okay, John, the news, it turned out it was old news, but I'm putting up a tweet of Adam Schefter here. Adam Schefter tweeted on Thursday, Deshaun Watson officially has requested a trade from the Houston Texans, per league sources. He actually did it weeks ago. Their new head coaching hire, David Culley, has not and will not alter Watson's thinking. Then he followed it up with another tweet. Deshaun Watson hasn't spoken to new Texans GM Nick Caserio nor Jack Easterby, the executive. Watson is moving on and waiting to see where his NFL future takes him.
So the Houston area is going through multiple trade requests for star players in a 3-month span. Well, I guess less than that. Month span.
It's a lot to take. You understand why they had a march for Deshaun last week.
Yeah. So I guess this has been out there. We have been discussing it for a long time. It's now just officially official that the guy wants out and is not coming back. A little bit like the Stafford case. Does feel like people interviewing would have known. Unlike Dan Campbell, a little bit like Dan Campbell, I guess, they hired a guy that wasn't interviewing anywhere else. Could they have got a legitimate candidate who knew that the quarterback wants out? Probably not. A lot of smoke around this organization. I do believe, though, if you are just going to blow it up, this is a pretty good piece because they're going to be able to trade J.J. Watt for like a second. So they're going to be able. They don't have any picks. They don't have any money. Get rid of J.J. Watt for a second. Deshaun Watson. If Jalen Ramsey, Khalil Mack, and Jamal Adams net 2 1s, I guess only 2 of the 3, 2 1s and a 2, what's Watson worth? We know, we talk about it all the time. We say it when we're watching games. We see it with Vegas. Those players are injured. The line doesn't change. Those players are injured, their team can still win. The quarterback's really the only guy that moves the needle for a fan like, God, our backup are probably going to lose. The betting lines change dramatically. How is he not worth, I don't know, 4 first-rounders, Guy? 3 firsts and 2 twos. Like, to me, the freight is enormously high.
I agree with you on that. And the trade that I'll reference happened 12 years ago now, 2009. Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was 25 years old. Jay Cutler was coming off his 3rd year in the league. And his 3rd year, it was not as good as what Deshaun Watson has put forth, who's coming off his 4th year in the league in his mid-20s. And Cutler was traded to the Bears for 2 1s, a 3, and Kyle Orton. So,
God, the Patriot guys are they trade quarterbacks when they get jobs, huh?
They do.
That was Josh McDaniels,
That was
right?
Josh McDaniels. So, 2 1s, if 2 1s got you Jay Cutler, plus a 3rd, plus a quarterback. 2 1s ain't getting you to Deshaun Watson.
I bet the Patriots and Belichick and those guys hated Jay Cutler, huh? They had to. He went there with no thought of playing with Jay Cutler.
And they got 2 1s for a quarterback
right?
they hated. So now we're talking about a player that's in much better standing in the NFL than Jay Cutler was at that time. So at minimum, you would say, and I agree with you. You're talking about Jalen Ramsey got 2 1s. He's a great player, but he's not a quarterback.
Is there draft pick inflation in football? Like that 2 1s, do 2 1s still mean a lot? They meant a lot then. They mean a lot now. For a guy that Jay Cutler viewed as a franchise quarterback, looking back, it doesn't seem like that much. John Gruden
but I think there were questions about whether or not he was truly like a star franchise quarterback, right? Like I think people feel a lot better about Deshaun than Jay.
So if you got questions, you're still getting 2 1s,
That's
a
what
3,
I'm saying.
and a quarterback?
So that means Deshaun. I'm just saying there's not that far to leap to 4 first when we talk about how much, I think the fact that Deshaun Watson is viewed in a much higher place right now than Jay Cutler was at that time. And Jay was, he turned out he led the league in picks the next year, his first year in Chicago. So it was immediately like, oh. But my point is just 3 1s and a really good player, 3 1s and a 2 and a really good player.
Well, there's 2 teams that he's already been linked to that make a lot of sense, right? The Jets and the Dolphins, who have one team has pick 2, one team has the Texans pick in pick 3. Those are very, very valuable. Those alone are worth 2 picks in the 20s. I saw my buddy Jordan Renan quoted a tweet that I had that I said 4 first-rounders. He rightfully said not all firsts are equal. And you and I talk a lot about that, like when Khalil Mack was traded. You trade Khalil Mack, or Jalen Ramsey. Those guys were the 5th, the 4th, the 6th pick, Jamal Adams. And then you get 2 ones back that are in the 20s. You would never, on the day of the draft, traded pick 6 for pick 23 and 26 in that same draft. No one would.
And then it turns out the player hit.
Yeah, well, 100%. So I think you have to factor that in. Now, there's money aspect to it, but you could argue that pick 2 is worth multiple picks in the 20s, because it is. So that's very valuable to the Houston Texans. Both those two teams have young quarterbacks. So could they do something like pick 2 or 3, another 1, a 2, and the quarterback? Especially Tua, if Caserio likes Tua. You go, I get a young player under contract. I get the 2nd or 3rd pick. What would make it a little weird is, well, then would you use that on a quarterback as well as Tua? They're going to have options. When I read the Texans have no leverage, bullshit. In the NFL, teams always have leverage because they're not afraid of just going, yeah, we'll see you here then, man.
Yeah, I mean, right. To go
and
back
multiple teams are lined up to try to get the guy. Like, it's supply and demand.
To go back to Schefter's tweet, right? Deshaun is moving on and excited to see where his NFL future takes him. Well, his NFL future takes him where the Texans send him. Now,
he has no trade clause, has to sign a paper.
That's right. So he can affect the destination. There's no doubt. But there are a lot of places that are pretty attractive to your point. So that's the advantage for the Texans, is the Texans can say, okay, you'd like to go to Miami, or the Jets would work for you, or the Niners. Like, that's the question, is does he have 1 team on his list or 3? Because if he's got 3, hell, if he's got 2, that's all the Texans need. They just need 2 teams competing for Deshaun Watson, right? That's it. That's all they need is 2.
You think Deshaun Watson's a lock to get traded?
I think he's going to get traded. I never think in
agree.
these situations it's a lock, right? Like, to me, Matt Stafford, it's a lock. The Lions have announced, basically it's known, hey, we're going to part ways with him. That's a lock. I would say nothing else beyond that is a lock, but yeah, this is kind of crazy. Feels like he's gone.
Well, I think it's also a good situation if you got this new administration, you have a quarterback that wants out. They actually are pretty well suited to, like, not totally get screwed, right? To be able to probably pivot. There's a chance they can get rid of Deshaun, end up with a top 5 pick, another 1st rounder, and a 2nd rounder, and maybe a quarterback. And all of a sudden, you know what? They ended up with a young quarterback who's cheaper, some cap flexibility. Like, they have breathing. They can tank kind of indirectly next year because they're not going to be any good. They can kind of do the Miami Dolphin version of the blow up. The only thing is, it's a pretty, like, if I was a Houston Texans fan and I enjoyed watching this guy for the last 3 or 4 years, and I had been invested longer in that, right? Because if I'm a Texans fan, I probably at least casually watch minimum the playoffs in college football. Watch this guy, he's been in our vernacular, and now I'm just losing him.
Yeah.
Like, that's, and
sucks.
more than likely he's going to go somewhere and be a good player, and then I'm just hoping on the coin flip that, like, oh, we drafted the guy, or we get Tua and he turns out to be good, because we know more than likely draft pick 50-50 Tua. I would not be cool. Like, we got Tua and we got rid of this guy. Like, that wouldn't be cool. Even Sam Darnold, like, I wouldn't want any of that. I'd rather just have more picks, no quarterbacks.
Yeah, I would want more picks. But I think that's what makes this way more win-win than you would think a quarterback of his stature getting traded would be, is that 2 of the teams that it seems like he wants to go to have the 2nd and the 3rd pick and quarterbacks. Now, you're right. I wouldn't want their quarterbacks either. But, I mean, you want to throw them on top of something. I would take Sam Darnold.
You do need someone to play quarterback for you.
Yeah, I would take Sam Darnold over, like, you adding in a 3rd. That's fine.
Would you pick up his 5th-year option right away, or would you just play it out?
Play it out.
Yeah, I would too.
Because, again, like you said, you might end up now, if you use that, you might use that pick on a quarterback. And if that's the case, then Sam Darnold might as well be a 4th-round pick in that trade, right? If I'm using the Jets pick to draft Justin Fields, then you sending me Sam Darnold is just, I'm making your life easier so you can just throw him in.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to do something with him. Unless the Jets think they could then flip around and trade Darnold to the Niners for a 3rd or something, or 4th.
Yeah, if he goes to the Jets or the Dolphins, is Tua Sam Darnold involved in that trade? That, to me, is the number one question. I by no means think it's a lock. They are. It wouldn't shock me if one of the guys is in the trade. It wouldn't shock me if the Texans don't want that guy, right? That's what kind of makes this whole thing fascinating. But the one thing we know, if he's traded, they have to, 100% have to, get that 2nd or 3rd pick in the deal. It's a non-negotiable, right?
Right.
And then it's just, are we talking 2 other ones? Are we talking 4 ones? Are we talking the 3rd pick? your next year's one, because that already is a lot, because that number 2 or 3 pick is valued, then multiple twos, and maybe like a player. It's going to be very, very fascinating to see what their line of demand is.
Well, let's talk about it from a Niners perspective for a second, because when we talk about the two teams we're talking about, the Niners don't have the ammunition relative to having the second or the third pick.
No, they don't.
They do have players, right? They have good players. But to me, if you're doing a full rebuild, I don't know if, like, let's just say Nick Bosa. I'm doing a full rebuild on the Texans. Do I want Nick Bosa? I mean, you could argue, yeah, he's young enough. He's really good. That's worth something to me. If the Niners are going to be good, is Nick Bosa worth more than the Niners' first-round pick in 2022?
Well, yeah. What if the Niners are offering 3 first-round picks, 12 in the next 2 years, and every other team's offering 2 or 3, one more one that's a bad one, right? One of those ones from one of the playoff teams in the trade, and then a couple seconds. I think this is where you have to weigh it all. I just don't see the Niners.
And Jimmy Garoppolo. If, let's say, Nick Caserio likes Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
And again, that's not really an incentive for the Texans. I just throw it in there to say, like you
gives
said
them
earlier,
a little wiggle
they need
room,
somebody to play quarterback.
Veteran. Yeah.
But if I've got the option of the second or the third pick, and I like one of these quarterbacks, I can't take the 12th pick and a bunch of future ones.
Yeah. I actually think a Jimmy Garoppolo type player makes more sense for the Texans if they're going to blow it up than Tua or Sam Darnold, right? Especially if they drafted a quarterback, they could easily have him sit for a year. You can always cut Jimmy at any moment, right? Year to year. They don't have any money. That's the other problem. The Texans' cap situation is a disaster. That's where J.J. Watt also needs to go. God, they're going to blow this thing up. Good luck, David Kelly. 65 years old, lifetime position coach. Good luck. Sucks for him.
Sucks. I mean, he wasn't going to be a head coach.
No, I mean, it sucks for him that his team has zero chance to win.
Yeah, but if it wasn't this team, he wouldn't be the head coach of this team.
Exactly.
So,
cards he was dealt.
And no one's going to crush him if it's bad.
No, he'll just get fired
and get paid.
He'll get
but
paid.
This is not. I mean, a player of Deshaun Watson's level getting traded in the NFL is pretty insane.
Whack quarterback. It's
Hasn't
happened in a decade plus with Jay Cutler, and like you said, Deshaun's on a higher level than Jay was at the same time. Even though that was pretty nuts.
It was.
Right?
Nuts.
I kind of vaguely remember that. It was like, God, Josh McDaniels kind of crazy. This doesn't feel like the front office is crazy because they at least keep leaking. We want to keep him. We don't want to trade him. And he's just kind of taking it out of their hands. And maybe they don't mind. Like, the Patriots, just blow it up, start over, pick my own guys. And in fairness, if a guy truly doesn't want to be there and he's telling like, I'm not going to change. I'm not a bad guy, but I do not want to be. You don't really want those guys around. I don't think any company, football or just the real world, it's hard to have a guy, especially when he's your most talented guy, because that's who everyone follows, that doesn't want to be there. Like it's hard to trade on quote unquote culture when the guy's miserable.
Yeah, if you can change his mind, great. But if you can't change his mind, you don't want him there against his will.
And from all that we're reading, it doesn't feel like the mind is changing at all. If anything, it's only getting stronger. Because people are like, David Culley will not change Deshaun Watson's mind. Like, okay, we get it.
Let's give David Culley a chance.
I know.
But Deshaun doesn't want. I mean, I think what that means is Deshaun Watson's not hearing it, right? That's what that means.
Yeah.
He's not hearing it. And, all the reports are it starts with the owner. So then you understand why David Culley couldn't change his mind. But
looking forward to seeing this play out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Over the next 7 months, hopefully. Or weeks.